Dr. Buddy, principal of Wade Park School in Cleveland, Ohio. The session that they asked me to present on today was really looking at building a community of student leaders. We're going to share a little bit of background on our school and really where we've come in really the last 4 years. To give you a little background, the area that I am in at Wade Park, lots of crime. Maybe about 2 years ago, we had a couple of our first graders outside playing, drive by the next door neighbor, almost got hit, had to do multiple hospital visits. Another family, student was in his bed sleeping, someone shot up his house, he got hit 5 times. So a lot of violence that a lot of our students are dealing with to and from school. So really trying to set up a culture where when they walk into our building, they're able to be in an environment where they know we care for them and really feel safe. So that has been one of our biggest emphasis since I've been principal at the school the last 4 years, really just putting different things in place so that they are able to know that we care for them. Really, my journey started teaching in Miami-Dade County, grew up in Miami, Florida. So one of the questions I get all the time is, how did you end up in Cleveland? My one and only complaint of Cleveland is the cold. So right now it's snowing in Cleveland. I'm so happy to be here with you guys in Houston, Texas. But started teaching in Miami-Dade County, 3rd and 4th grade, then moved up to Atlanta, Georgia. When I got to Atlanta, Georgia and Clayton County, that was the year that Clayton County lost their accreditation because some mess was going on with the board members. So really questioned why I left Miami-Dade County and my family, but taught in Atlanta, 3rd and 4th grade again, and then I was a K-5 Title I teacher, then assistant principal, and then in 2015 moved up to Cleveland to be principal at Wade Park. So one of the things when I got to Wade Park, I walk into the main office and we have like 2 desktop computers, if you want to call it that, running XP. And I'm like, okay, this is 2015. How are we running XP right now? So did a walkthrough of the building and didn't have a working computer lab. Very few computers in the building that even worked. No iPads, no laptops, really no nothing. So kind of spoke with some of the staff members. Well, you know, what are some community partners that we have that could help us? There at the time there was only 2. So really over the first 14 months, just really reached out to get partners to come into the building to really support what we were doing, and then started the work of changing the culture in the building. So made an initial list of everything that I kind of wanted to tackle, and this is not everything. So just different buckets. So academics, my first year at the school, 8% of our 3rd graders were proficient. 8. And that actually probably come up a little bit from the previous year. So definitely academics was a huge part of the work, but if students don't feel safe, there was a shooting or there was a shooting the night before, or there wasn't food to eat the night before. Is the student going to care about what you're trying to teach them? Absolutely not. So the academic part, like I said, was a big component, but really working on our culture piece was really at the center. Definitely, you know, I wanted to start a student ambassador program, a student leadership program, develop a pipeline so students were aware of what they could be. Definitely wanted to put together multi-systems of supports in place. At that point, we were suspending students left and right. For instance, student wouldn't sit in their seat, you need to go home. If you suspend a student because they won't sit in their seat and they go home for 2 days, and for the most part, they're home watching TV, hanging out. What happens when they come back to school 2 days later? They're doing the same behavior. They're still not gonna sit in their seat, doing the same behavior. So we wanted to put together kind of a systems of support in place. Definitely wanted to put together some friends and supporters. Brandon, at that moment, we had substitutes, forget students not wanting to come, some students not wanting to come to the building. We had substitutes that were like, oh no, we will never go to that school. So really having to rebrand our image, but first, what were we about? What were we going to tolerate and what we were not going to tolerate? My first year at Wade Park, we had 295 students. Really, going into my fourth year, we now have 480 students. Now in Cleveland, just to give you a little more context, all the schools are K-8s. Those are like the typical elementary schools. And most 90% of them are small. So you have schools from like 200, 250, 300. All the schools really are small. So 292 when I got there actually wasn't bad compared to 4 other schools within a mile radius of Wade Park. So a lot of folks have asked, well, how have you guys gone from 290 to now 480? And we've had to cap several grade levels and classes because we just don't have the space. A lot of that was our rebranding that we did. But you can't brand or rebrand anything if things are, to put it nicely, a hot mess inside the building. 3 pockets we're gonna speak about briefly in the short time we have. Culture transformation, our student leadership pipeline, and community in general. So looking at our culture transformation, and this is one of our first grade scholars on Picture Day about 2 weeks ago. She decided she wasn't going to sit still for the camera person, so this was her picture. So one thing was relationships. Okay, so what I told like my assistant principal that I hired my second year in, I said, look, my students do not care about your title. So if you want to lead with, oh, I'm the assistant principal, they're going to laugh at you and walk away. They don't care about titles. So relationships. How are you developing relationships with students, with families, with the community in general? That was a huge piece of this culture transformation. Every Monday, we start the week with a morning meeting with the entire school. During that morning meeting, we talk about what are our expectations? What are some goals for the week? Do we have any special dress down? Do we have any competitions that are taking place throughout the week? All of those things happen during our morning meeting. We do celebrations, shout outs, kudos. Then Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, when students get to their classroom, class meetings is the first thing that happens. So during the class meeting, teacher once again is reviewing expectations. We've moved from having class rules to this is the expectation and the teacher models it for students. We start every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays with class meetings. Tuesdays and Thursdays, our social emotional learning part, K-5 does a program called Paths, which just teaches students like, how do you express your feelings? So we've moved from, oh, you touch me too hard, I'm gonna punch you in the face, literally, and this is like a first grader, not even like a first grade. You touch me too hard, no one's taught me how to play or how to interact properly, so if you touch me too hard, look at me crazy, my mom told me I need to defend myself, so I'm gonna punch you back in the face. So I know my first year, 90% of our fights were in first grade. I mean, literally. I mean, little babies just, oh, well, he touched me too hard, so I'm going to knock him out. Not literally knock him out, but. So our PATH program, which the entire city of Cleveland uses for K-5, teaches students how do you express your feelings. So like in kindergarten, they have different puppets that the teacher uses, and they do role playing and that type of thing. Our middle school students use Second Step, which does talk about feelings, but more so in terms of like conflict resolution. How do you resolve a problem properly? Expectations for learning. So we had to come up with school-wide expectations, which goes back to our PBIS, but what in every area of the building, the cafeteria, the hallway, in our hallways now, when students transition, the students and teachers know we don't transition unless we have 100% compliance. So it's not like they're in the military, but they know like when we transition in the hallway, they're tracking their teacher, they're in one line, they're quiet. If someone starts to talk, the teacher knows to stop the class. They wait for the 100% compliance, and then the students transition. So really just expectations for learning, and then ownership. Having students own their learning, having students own their building. We just had I was here yesterday, but we had a basketball game yesterday, and we're 3-0, so boys are doing their thing. But students, our kids will tell you, like, look, we may have our disagreements, but you're not going to talk about another Wade Park student. Like, don't come in our house. So we've really gotten to the point now where they own their learning, they own their building. It's their building. And I'm quick to say, look, I just work there. It's their building. So really the ownership part was huge. One quote that we've used that is crucial: all students have the ability to learn, for the barriers to learning do not reside in the student. Take a moment. We're going to do a quick think, pair, share with someone next to you. Unpack this statement. Do a quick, I'm going to give you 40 seconds with a person next to you. Unpack this quote. Go ahead, take 40 seconds.
Empowered you, and we have to kind of own how we're impacting it, right?
So let's bring them back. Anyone want to share out some of the discussion that you had with your partner about this quote? Heard some great conversation up front, but anyone want to share out before we pick somebody to share out?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Okay, so it means all students want to learn, but the only thing that stops them from learning is the things that happen to them in their environment.
Okay. Yes.
Starting with the premise that it is not the kid's fault that he's not learning. The problem isn't the kid, and we want it to be because
Yes.
we don't have to do anything.
Yes.
So are we saying schools create creativity or does it kills creativity?
Hopefully not killing. That's a great point.
The statement says is that it kills.
Okay.
Sorry, what did you say?
Say it a little louder. She didn't hear you back.
Do the schools kill creativity or they create creativity? That's something to
Yep.
ponder.
Someone else? Yes.
I think it's when we define what the learning looks like rather than
Yes.
what the proof of the learning
Yes.
should be.
Yes.
We define, no, you should learn it this way because I learned it that way, so it should work for you.
Yes.
Because that's what worked
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And define that instead of defining what we want the end result to be and see how they
Yes.
need to get to that end result.
So one major shift we had to make was not blaming the student. So after my first year in the test scores came back and we were, 8% proficient in third grade, we had staff members, well, the students came to me and they couldn't read. Or, well, so-and-so only comes to school 3 days a week. So we really had to dig in deep, and everything could not come from me. So my teacher leadership team really had to own, no, these are what our expectations are inside this building. And if students are not learning, we need to look at ourselves. So that has been one of our major shifts that's happened in the building. Another big thing we want to look at is our student leadership pipeline. So yes, we're working on our culture. We were working on getting some clubs in place. Didn't really have any after school or before school programming. So one of the things we looked at was, how are we empowering students to empower other students to be successful? How are we developing students in our building? Are we doing any community service? So I started one of our student leadership programs, which is our student ambassador program. So the ambassador program is really ambassadors in every classroom in the building, K through 8. So like as we speak right now, they're a little upset with me because I haven't met with them in 2 weeks, and anyone was gone this week, and they're like, we need to meet. So usually we meet during their lunchtime, and we have after school sessions too, but our K-5 group meets with me during lunch. So it focuses around academics, empowerment, developing, service, and what we don't call them field trips, we call them learning journeys. So academics, so this was last February. Anyone heard of the Ron Clark Academy? Okay, great. So Ron Clark had a big academic competition, so we took some of our middle school ambassadors to compete in the competition. Another part of the academic part that we've put in place now is they had mandatory study hall twice a week, 2 hours after school. Some weeks they have before school. They're getting ready to go to DC next week to speak to students, to do some sightseeing and community service. So they had a session. They're committed to this group, let's just say that. So academics is one part of it. Empowerment. This is some of our students speaking to some students in Atlanta. When we went to the Ron Clark Academy, we visited 5 schools, and they write their own speeches. They go into classrooms, they empower other students to be successful, they give tips for success. Another part of their speech talks about what was their academic journey. So students that are selected for this program, they have to go through an interview process, they write an essay. Several of them have had like D's and F's in school, been suspended a lot. So they're not all like, oh, they're all straight A students. We really look for a mix of different students. So this is just them, this is one example of them presenting in Atlanta. Service, so we try to, this is them feeding the homeless at one of our church partners. So we try to involve them a couple times a semester doing some community service, clean up trash around our school. There's a nursing home a block away from Wade Park, so we visit them also. And then one of our church partners serves the homeless once a month. So this is them actually in July serving the homeless. So learning journeys. Over the last 4 years, through us developing partnerships with just different businesses and churches, we've been able to take our ambassadors to New York, Boston, Atlanta, Chicago, DC. So this is one of their learning journeys in New York, where once again, we visited about 7 schools. Now this trip especially, we took them to some high schools. Now we try to keep them to like elementary and middle, but we went to one of the schools, Brooklyn Tech, which has like, I think like 5,000 kids. So just them knowing that beforehand, they're like, we're going where? Yes. So we took, and really all of these trips just through, like I said, our different partners are fully funded. So anywhere from like airfare, meals, any supplies that might need for the trip, really everything. So like I said, this is just one example of our learning journey. This was, during all of our learning journeys, we try to loop in some like a Broadway show, some art, something, because a lot of our students have not been exposed to that. So that's one of the art museums in Atlanta, at the aquarium. And this picture up here, the ambassadors do a program a couple times each semester where they network and meet new students in the building to help them like make friends. So like I'm just in the room. They have little cards they make up to greet them. They write information down. This one was an ice cream celebration. So they got with the secretary, they got the ice cream order. They're like, they designated who was serving, who was seating. So, I mean, I'm literally just in the room. So someone did the welcome, then they broke themselves up around the room to speak to the different students. You know, what's your name? Where are you coming from? You know, this is who I am, to really just kind of really start that relationship with new students. So that's at one of their new student orientations. So community. We talked about how do you brand your building, but we talked about you can't brand your building if there's really nothing to brand. So right here, this is an example. Has anyone heard of Kagan Cooperative Learning? Oh, fantastic. So this is our 2nd year using Kagan. So this is 2 first graders doing stand-up, hand-up, pair-up, which is the structure where you stand up, your hand is up, you find a partner, you high-five your partner, and then you share. So they're doing a reading activity where they're sharing, and once you finish sharing, you thank the partner for sharing, which goes back to building a community in each classroom. So each classroom is its own community by itself. So once again, we couldn't have started this 2015 when I first got to Wade Park because we were not ready. Kagan is we're still pushing up. This is only our 2nd year doing it, but where we are now, where students are able to, like I said, my first graders are fighting. You see how they're standing greeting each other now. So we're starting to actually have some things to brand now. So social media branding, how do we do that? So we have allowed, now we're not fully there, but we've allowed our students to have some access to like our Instagram and our Facebook and our Twitter, where they take pictures and they post. We've asked our teachers in the building to share the great things that are happening. So the teachers are slowly starting to get on Twitter and post, but some of it is we're allowing our students to have access. Now, granted, we don't allow anybody in the school just to have our Twitter account, say, yo, post. Well, no, right now, even more so, it's a controlled thing where, you know, oh, we're doing an activity. Oh, can I take a picture and post and write about what we're doing? That's kind of where we are now. So that's that. With parent workshops, each month we have a parent university. So for instance, for December that's coming up, the focus is science, because in end of January, every student has to turn in their science fair project. So we have science fair boards there. My academic coach is gonna walk parents through, even though we send the directions home, how to set the board up. My first year, things were coming back and stuff was everywhere. I mean, one student had stuff on the front and the back of the board. And I'm like, well, why do you have things in the back? Well, I couldn't fit everything on the front, so I put things in the back. Now, in that student's mind, it made lots of sense to do that, and did not have a parent that could really help them with that. So I said, okay, well, we got some more work to do. So for December, our focus is science, and we're gonna walk our parents through exactly how to do the research, how to pick a topic, all those different things, and kind of walk them through it. Ownership, we've talked about ownership, but really getting the community to own their building, own the school. This past summer, we planted flowers in front of the building, and several of our neighbors were like, look, really last year we had some plants we kind of just put out there, and every night we were bringing them inside. And I'm like, you know, something like, we should be able to leave plants outside our building and not have them get taken. So this year we planted, and folks were like, they're gonna steal your flowers, buddy. I'm like, no, they're not. And I mean, because we had students helping us plant and dig, especially a lot of our ambassadors, I mean, if anyone would walk close to the area, they were like, look, you better walk around Buddy's flowers. So we've, you know, and we went, actually I would say, I was actually in Vegas for a conference in July, and my secretary texted me and she's like, someone stole your plant, which actually was her plant that she brought from her house. And I'm like, they stole our plant? She's like, buddy, they got you. So then like an hour later, she's like, they brought it back. So literally someone unplanted a plant, took it wherever, and then brought it back and left it on the spot and left. So that was like our only like situation with like plants missing, which was I was like, they brought it back? She's like, buddy, they brought it back. So really owning our community, like I said, you know, in the past, they were like, no, like, buddy, they would have taken your stuff. Now folks are really accepting what you're trying to do here and what the students are doing. Like I said, the students did a lot of the planting themselves. So really close to our school is University Circle. They do a big like artsy parade every summer. So our students built these wings that they wore. I was there with them. I was not planning to wear wings. I'm glad I'm not in this picture, but they had me out there with wings on. But our students built each of the wings, and they built their headpieces and necklaces. So everything they built for them, they made for themselves. And you'd have thought they were like the Macy's Day Parade. Let's just say that. Okay. So this is them, like I said, but once again, like we now have a relationship with University Circle, which is literally the hub of all the museums in Cleveland, and they invited our kids to walk in the parade. So we have an after-school program called America Scores, that's soccer and poetry. So this is some of our students performing their poetry on stage. We have a partnership with NASA now, so they come out and test different projects before they roll out to other schools in our building. And this is one of she was in 6th grade at the time. This is Madison. Madison gets paid to do speeches now. I mean, she's the real deal. Please YouTube Madison Reed, R-E-I-D, the real deal. So one of the big community colleges in Cleveland is Tri-C. They have a huge MLK program every year. 2 years ago, they moved it to Playhouse Square, which seats like 3,000, 4,000 people. And this is Madison on stage, giving a 15-minute speech with no notes, no nothing. Got a standing ovation. So she's one of our student ambassadors, but she's just amazing. In a nutshell, we talked about setting the vision for your school. What do you want this place, this space to be? What are you going to tolerate and not tolerate? As the leader of the building, yes, I set the initial vision, but everything could not come from me. Right now, like this week, I'm out of the building really 4 days. And my teacher leaders and I have 2 assistant principals, they're running the building. When someone makes a comment or does something, 99% of the time, they're like, look, we don't do that here. So what's the vision? How are you getting your individuals on your team to really own it? Be authentic. When we post like pictures on our social media, we have our students, we don't sit there, okay, let's have students do a make-believe set, right? No, we post authentic pictures of what's happening, really good and bad. So be authentic. Be consistent. Connect. How are you connecting? So one of the things that our parents told us was, thank you for sending those flyers home in the book bags, but 1, we don't know when they're coming home, and 2, yeah, and one parent was just upfront, like, look, I may live in this neighborhood, but I got a smartphone, so can you post things on social media for us? Which I was like, okay, before I got there, we didn't have a Facebook. Well, we had a Facebook, but they didn't use it as much. Didn't have a school website, didn't have an Instagram. So now every Tuesday, unless the CEO says, buddy, send something home, every Tuesday is when we send information home to parents. So the students have a Tuesday take-home folder, and it says on the front, Tuesday take-home folder, and that's when we send information home to our parents. Every Sunday, and only on Sunday, unless it's an emergency, we call parents every Sunday between 7 and 8 and give them announcements for the week. So we're really streamlining because before it was like, I'm not answering your call. You call the district and y'all called us 3-4 times this week. I'm not answering your call. So we have folks blocking us. And I'm like, how are you gonna block your own child's school? Like, but really unpacking it, it was, no, y'all keep calling us and y'all are calling at bad times. Like, I'm here trying to watch and you're calling me, I'm not picking up. So they know, I'm like, guys, give me 1 call. So they know every Sunday between 7 and 8, the call goes out and it gives them announcements and reminders for the week. Every Tuesday, check your child's book bag. Really want you to check your child's book bag every day for homework, but check your child's book bag on Tuesday for any information or report cards coming home. Promote and engage. So really looking at how are you going to promote your brand? How are you going to engage? For us, it was, and it's a continual process. It's not perfect. Look into how do we promote ourselves, because we're continually looking to get partners to come into our building, and then how are we engaging? But really looking at engagement in terms of what works best for our faculty and staff, what works best for our students. Like, for instance, one takeaway, our students were like, look, we are not on Facebook. That's for you old people. So, like, if you're posting things on Facebook, we're not reading it. And really, we were posting a lot of our things every week on Facebook. Now, we still do because our parents use Facebook. But our students were like, look, we're not going on there. That's for old people. We're not old. I'm like, well, thank you. I'm not that old, but thank you. So I was like, I guess we need to set up an Instagram or a Snapchat. So that's what we're doing now. And that came directly from our students saying, like, we're not checking Facebook. That's for old people. So really, in a nutshell, telling your story. How are you telling your story? What is your vision for the building? This is a quote that I just love that we have posted in some areas of our building. You see things and you say, why? But I dream things that never were, and I say, why not? Constantly pushing our students and our teachers to push barriers in our building and to ask, why not? It's truly been a pleasure to work with you today, to share a couple of things that we're doing in our building to really create a building of leaders that are ready to conquer anything that comes at them in this world and really provide hope for our students. So one last takeaway. Are you the one? And you can look at that in many different facets. Are you the one that's given hope to your students? Are you one that is putting their candle out? And one thing we've done this year is really push our teachers to look at every interaction they have with students and with parents. and one activity we recently did was, how many positive interactions did you have today? Which is forcing our staff and ourselves to look at, okay, yeah, we've made improvement. Yeah, our enrollment is up almost double that we've had in 3 years, but are we creating positive interaction and experiences every single moment of every single day to help students experience success at Wade Park? Thank you for your time. If you have any other additional questions, here's my contact information. I'll be in the back. And thank you so much for coming out this morning.